Hello, Nick with Downstream Fishing here, and I'm going to show you my number 2 favorite method for winter nymphing. This setup is a little bit more intricate than others you might have used, and it is slightly clumsy, so there's a specific casting method and a way to drift this thing as well to make it effective, but it really gets flies down deep into the bucket quickly and holds them there, which is great in the winter when the flows are low, the temperature of the water is cold, and those fish are holding deep and not moving very much. So check it out. I hope you like it. And what we have here is what we refer to as the Teton Rig in the fly fishing world. It goes by a lot of different nicknames, including pogo rig, bangin, u-bangy, and you'll see why in just a moment, but it does differ greatly from the traditional inline fly fishing setup. Generally, in the inline nymphing situation, you'd have your leader to tippet section with the flies on the bottom of the setup. In the Teton rig, what you're going to do instead is put the weight at the bottom of your setup. Up above the weight, about 12 inches to 16 inches or so, you'll have your first fly, and I do like to put the bigger, heavier fly on the bottom here. And then another 12, 16, sometimes even 18 inches up above the first fly is your second fly. So those are both tied on here in this situation with a surgeon's knot, and then we run another overhand loop to get it to wrap around your running line here and stick off at a nice 90-degree angle instead of hanging down along your running line like this. So what happens in this situation? In our setup here, the stream flow is going left to right. It's going this way, okay? So that's why we have the indicator up here, because your indicator is going to be pulled by the river this way, while your weight back here is dragging on the bottom of the river like so. So this is going to be dragging behind your flies and your indicator, and this line will be somewhat taut here from the indicator to the flies. Sorry, to the weight, not the flies. So this section right here will be taut because the weight will be bouncing along the bottom of the river like so. Tick, 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 tick. And what that means is that the indicator at the top here will also be bouncing like so. Tick, 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 tick. Hence the term pogo rig. Now, generally in fly fishing, folks talk about getting a natural drift, and part of that natural drift is your flies moving along with the speed of the water. Well, in this situation, your setup is moving slower than the speed of the water because the weight is dragging on the bottom. But in this situation, especially in winter fishing, actually in using this setup in any situation, it doesn't seem to affect the drift too much because these flies are on independent tags, so these kind of move around in the current all by themselves independently, even though the setup as a whole is going a little bit slower than the speed of the river. When figuring out how much weight you want to put on the bottom of the setup, I tend to start with at least 2 double Bs and then go up from there. In high flow situations, like in spring runoff situations, if we're running a Teton rig, often we'll be up to like 3 up. It's not a real pretty setup, and you have to modify your cast. You're doing a roll cast or a plop cast, where you're plopping in the water on your back cast and plopping in the water on your forward cast, because your false casting, your loops won't stay up. The weight's too heavy, and it'll actually, your loops will break down and hit you in the head. It's real messy, so you got to modify your cast in that way. But the secret here is to have enough weight here to where, as it's drifting the whole time, you're ticking the bottom, and that bobber is moving like this too. Now, you don't want too little weight to where everything's just moving through and you're not getting any register on the bottom. But you don't want to be too heavy to where the weight's getting hung up all the time and you're just getting snags and not getting a drift at all. And I just want to reiterate, especially the heavier the setup is with more weight on the bottom, you do not want to do a pretty false cast in the air. Your loops won't stay up. They'll break down, they'll come low, and they'll hit you in the back of the head, okay? So you have to roll cast this one, or you're gonna have to look downstream to where the water's open, plop onto the water on your back cast and plop onto the river for your forward cast, and you're gonna be mending a lot through the drift, watching the indicator go tick, 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 down the river. But this will get everything down into play quickly and hold it there, because these winter fish are cold and they're not moving quickly and they're just hanging out and hunkered down on the bottom of the river. So give this one a shot. Let's do a quick refresher course on the surgeon's knot itself. So we'll have our leader, our running line right here. This is our main line from bobber to to weights for this setup. Weights down on the bottom, the bobber on the top, and we've got a little piece of tagline that we've cut off. So to do the surgeons, we just lay them right next to each other. Usually I'll slobber nicely right here to get them to stick together. Make a circle, make a loop with both of them, and take both ends through 2 times. And that is your surgeon's knot. We'll trim off this little trim piece back here, this little tag piece. And then here is, it's starting to fray a little bit, but this is where you put your bugs on. You'll attach to this end here. And one more trick here. So you see how the surgeon's knot has the tag running down parallel with your leader, with your running line? It's hanging down this way. I'm gonna throw an overhand knot with that tag over the leader, over the running line. And now what happens is you get a nice 90-degree angle like this. So now your tag sticks 90 degrees off, your bug will hang nicely away from your leader, your running line, like that, okay? That also takes tension off the knot itself, and that loop that you just made is actually wrapped over your leader. So now you have the pressure of a fish or a snag pulling on the fly, that's actually pulling on the leader and not putting pressure on the knot itself. So that's another little bonus. So this is how we tied the tag lines onto that Teton rig. We get 1 bug, 2 bugs, and then the weights on the bottom.